Anyway, so I'm a sister of charity. I am 77 years old and growing younger every year. and come from a family of six brothers. It was a yours, mine, and ours family. So I think I came, I tell people I came out of my mom's womb like this. Da-da-da. So it's part of my personality. So having six brothers and no sisters, of course, didn't stop that process. I entered the Sisters of Charity. We all did at that time. It was a time of a lot of service, Kennedy, uh, and young people right out of high school. If I used to do it again, I wouldn't have done it, but I've never regretted it. I've had a wonderful life. I could never want anything more. And then I'm a teacher. And I taught in, it's interesting. My story is really important how I got here and why we did this. You'll understand when I tell you. So aside from my great desire to live religious life, to be a great teacher, to work in a system, a parochial system and school. So when I entered, I worked at St. Barnabas for just a couple of years. And during that time, our community in 70 changed. We're kind of a progressive. Now we're all getting ready to finish, as you might already know, many of the communities in the States. Not here, but certainly there. But anyway, at that time, we were really kind of the avant-garde. We were making changes that kind of leading a lot of other communities. So at that time in 70 was kind of early, but everybody had personal option. Just to give you an idea, Guatemala hasn't even gotten near that. Guatemala sisters haven't even gotten to the integrated human development, which is kind of sad. So, when you think about it, way back then in 70. So in 70, we had personal option, and we could choose who we wish to live with and work with or minister with. At that time, in 68, we went on a retreat. I'm kind of including this because I think it says a lot. We went on a retreat, and we had, at those days, there were a lot of priests who were gurus, if you will. But this Father Jim actually was way ahead of his time, talking about Chardin and others and community and teaching us to love each other and love community. So we decided after retreat, which was in 68, to meet every week. So we were in habit. Had a bottle of wine under one arm and a lasagna on the other, and we would go, and we just loved it. So we formed our community.
When you said we, was it the whole community?
I'm just going to tell you. 15 of us that had gone on that retreat, living in different places. So in a sense, 2 years before we actually moved in together as a community, we met every Thursday, talked about theology, which the Father Jim guided, but we also talked about teaching. We were all from college, from high school, from grammar school, but we love education. We love teaching. So that was kind of our focus. Anyway, so we went into a school that was closing. It was in the Bronx. So we transformed in 13 years, actually, and we did it in pretty quickly. A school that was the top school, excellent. We were written up in New York Times. Our children went to the best schools. They got scholarships to Xavier, to Regis, to Marymount, and anyway, we just attended the children whatever they needed. So the children who struggled, they got help. The children who were really bright, they got the best. Then we moved to another school, did the same thing, and that's kind of what brought me to Guatemala. A father of one of the students worked for programming in Apple and in all the modern, technology. At that time, it was 80. We still didn't have computers. So he said, how would you like to have computer class? Come. So he brought in apples that were not out in the market, the little boxes, the first original apple. So they weren't even, I don't know why he had them, but he had them. Maybe they were still in the process of developing. Anyways, he put them in our library. He taught a program called Logo from kindergarten all the way up. And then eventually through the years, we formed a business with our parents and our children. They learned how to do business skills, and so we raised thousands of dollars with a kid's kitchen. See how it's preparing me for here? So anyway, so we had, we would make sandwiches, these nice fresh sandwiches in vending machines. So my friend Buzz, client, had all the vending machines in this area. So we did that. Barbara Ford, Sister Barbara Ford, Bobby, this is named after her. Unfortunately killed in 2001, which I imagine you already have said that story.
No, I haven't had these.
Okay.
So I said a little bit.
You said a little bit. So anyway, Bobby came. I didn't know her. She came to see, because we supported Guatemala during all the time we taught. This was the conflict. This was the dirty war. This was the civil war. This is when 200,000 were killed raped, tortured, all just terrible. So we supported them. We prayed for them. We gave them money. We wrote cards. And so because of that, the sisters who are on mission here would always come up to our school. So we always had that very strong connection with Guatemala. So I feel like I was like, 23 years before I came here, I was in Guatemala. So, but never physically. So in '93 we came because Sister Barbara wanted to buy. Now this time it's '93. We've been working in the school since '80, and so her cousin gave her money. She bought computers, IBMs, put them into an office in Chichi, that little square box. And so we came for 2 weeks, and I brought 2 students, the father and his son and another student, and we taught Mayan, indigenous, some of whom just about read or write. And so we had them talk about their Mayan culture and put it into Microsoft Word, Super Paint, and then we also had there were no such thing as internet but Buzz had these discs. So we recorded their work. We had on CDs, a CD different type,
Floppy disks.
and we brought it back to the States. And so understand the kind of school we were in with these marvelous sisters and friends and teachers. We kind of said, okay, curriculum now is Mayan culture. So for a month and a half, we did Mayan culture. I'm a math teacher, so I did all the different bases, the Mayan base. '95, I came full-time. My mom died in '94, which opened me up to make a decision, and of course it wasn't hard. I just fell in love. I just thought it was just wonderful. So I came permanently in '95. I was here '93, '94, and then '95. And then I went to Caritas, and that's where they wanted me to do the computer, but that wasn't my heart. My heart was in teaching, teacher training. That's a lot of what I had done. So I did a little bit of that, but it was very obvious in '95, '96 that the people in Quiche, which were the most abused department of the conflict. The Truth Commission were, at that time, later on, were discovering where the mass graves were from the violence, because what happened here in Quiche is they just went up the entire corridor up to the north, up to Mexico, and they literally burned, raped, tortured, mostly women and children, because most of the men were out either in the army or in the guerrilla movement or in the civil patrol. So 432 villages disappeared and to this day don't exist. There were mass graves all over the place. So I'm jumping a little bit ahead. So in '95, when I came and my training was teacher training, I recognized that the team were wonderful, but they didn't do planning. They didn't have anything systematized. They were just working, and as most of our people do wonderfully. So we started and wrote a marvelous Mayan curriculum for mental health. So we got Caritas, where we worked, had formation health, hygiene, medicine. They had a little bit of medicinal, but mostly medicine and hygiene. Well, the people said to them, it's not working. And they were talking about psychosomatic illnesses that nobody was talking about. We still had army in the streets. When I came in '93, there were 2 mines that were set off in the airport as I was leaving, shook the whole airport. When I was here in Tupol and in Santa Cruz, 2 confrontations with the army and the guerrillas. This is '93. We're supposed to be in the peace accords. So you can see it was still pretty conflictual here. Anyway, so right away they decided we have to do mental health. So Bobby and her team a year prior, had gone up to Mexico, where many of the people had escaped to, and there were programs and psychiatrists and psychologists working with the people that had escaped. Here, nothing was happening. You couldn't even talk about it because they were afraid they could get killed. So, but we did. We did the manual. We started in '95 doing mental health experiences in all the communities. Jan, you were in Chinique at that time, and so it was horrendous. It was a risk for us, but it was interesting that they weren't threatening us because they were army, and there were people who did all the massacres all around us, but they let us do it. People, for the first, never talked. Remember, this is '80, '81 when all these massacres. It's now '95. Nobody spoke. They couldn't even speak in their own family. Because in a family, there might be a guerrilla and an army and a civil patrol. So nobody talked. They kept it all in. And of course, you can imagine what kind of harm and psychological harm that did. So our program, which was based on good psychology, but it was also Mayan. So we had all the symbols of the Mayan culture so they would feel comfortable, the fire, everything about the Mayan culture, and we incorporated this wonderful manual, which I'm proud of. We're revising it and doing another manual for present day, because it's, if any of you are teachers, which you are, it's all good pedagogy. So, unless you have all points, you don't just talk, you don't just say, you talk, you interact with it, you feel it, you share it, you paint it, you walk it. Anyway, so we did that. It was wonderful. So we did that, and then the peace accords came in '96. We still didn't have peace here in Quiche, but we kept working. And then we were asked to do a very large project in '97, '98 from USAID. Peace accords happened in '96. Nobody was working mental health because they were all afraid. There's too much violence still going on. So they asked us if we would do the mental health. So in '97, '98, we accepted a massive project, sleeping in the mountains, accompanying exhumations of clandestine graves. I mean, we saw massacres as from 2 to 100. The rope, the clothing was this color, red. I mean, nothing changed with the color, so all you saw were the bones. You could identify the machete killing, the dismembration, or whatever you call that. You saw the bullets. And so it was very obvious. And so we did it not for in the sense to have any proof. We just did it to help the people. So we accompanied the people, and it was a marvelous process. Finally got the United Nations not to give money or AID to any organization that didn't do mental health. They were doing exhumations, re-traumatizing the people. So the program to the national level became that you had to do mental health first. You had to get into the communities and help the people to prepare. Imagine opening a grave and seeing, all these body bones lined up. So we did that. And
how did they know where the graves were?
They all know. That was an interesting question. The people were in the woods when their families were killed, and they watched. So either they left them massacred and they buried them, so they knew, or the army threw them in what they call barrancos, or open spaces, so they did know. And then, so anyway, that was that time. Taking a long time, but I want you to get the feel also in the culture. And it's still here. The violence, secondary, third generation violence is still here. So then in some cases we brought them to trial. We have a case that was and they did find the people who did it, and there are cases going on in Guatemala now. There's some really big cases. Dos Aires, a couple of them where they had 200, 300 villages massacres, and they brought to justice the army people. And don't ask me more because I'll cry, because probably in another month they're all getting out of jail. They're in jail and they're probably all getting out of jail because of what's going on now with our political situation and our present president and changing all the laws and the corrupt justice system. So it's very sad. All my dear friends that work in justice are just dying. And so we lost a big part of it. It's called the International Commission Against Impunity, and they threw the head of that Ivan Vasquez, they threw all his workers out, and now they're changing all the cases. It's a terrible time right now. It's a terrible time for people like ourselves that, we do our part here with the people, but then you also have collaboration with the people that are really strong on an international level. Because right now, they don't know what to do. Because I don't know if you're seeing all that's going on now, and that we can't even get a candidate to be president. So these dark forces that are running this country have just put out 3 women that were supposed to be running. So you'll have to see what happens.
Because we had heard, or I don't know if you read that, there were 41 deaths of those young women in that.
Right, and those people will probably get out of jail.
They will.
Yeah. Well, we don't know. Right now, I mean, it seems
but they are prosecuting them at the moment. Right,
at the moment. And then there's another case that happened where the women who were sexually abused and slaves and their husbands were all killed, they did win that case last year. And now all those army people are in jail, but if it goes the way it's going, they will all be put out. Yeah. So I mean, it's a tough time in Guatemala now, and people like ourselves and people who are struggling. We're not having killings. We've had individual killings of public politicians. That seems to always happen. But for the work we're doing, there's no danger. I never have felt in danger. Even with Bobby's case, that was a common crime story. We never really felt. Anyway, so all of that was my preliminary to coming to, so Mary and I don't know what, I think God and our angels and everybody else gave us this wonderful inspiration. And so we were on retreat with our Sisters of Charity. One was our regional. And so I said, hey Mary, let's go and talk to Margaret. Why don't we think about asking the community to buy property? Let's build a center and let's take all the work, knowing someday we weren't going to be here. So how do we preserve everything that's happening? And so sure enough, the community is marvelous. They said, sure, yeah. So this property, which is 51 acres, beautiful wooded area. I'm sorry you don't have time to walk around. We have a beautiful ecological walk. We have a farm. We have models of systems of irrigation by drip irrigation and conservation of soil. All of those are around our projects. And so anyway, so we bought the property, and it was just, when we walked in here, we just knew this was it. So the work that we do with young girls who are 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, because they also were raped, and so they have children. So we worked with them on a psychological, but we're also our whole mission is integrated human spiritual development. And so at the end, or during that time, they also get a chance to learn a trade. Because even though they're feeling good, if they go back to their situation, they're dependent on whomever they're with. So they get to have their own little business. So we have a very strong program in opportunities. And that's probably our biggest one. So we have over thousands of young people who come, they get integrated health, they get their, as we say, camino de vida, their walk of life, what do they want, and also giving values and spirituality. And so they get a chance to go to what's called Intercap, and we have a relationship with it's a government and non-government organization, very well funded with incredible technical school. And so they go and they actually get trained. We don't give them money, we don't give them we give it to them, but we have a way, it's called an aspasia, I say that in English. So if a young person wants to start a business with honey, they get all their equipment, and there's a project that does that. We have money from a project. They get their beehives and da-da-da. And then their first harvest, they can pay back the cost of that, which is not 100%, but they can pay back in honey or the money they get from selling the honey. And so that keeps them, a sense of dignity. They're not getting anything for nothing, and we don't do that. So we're kind of happy with that. We have down there's a building where we have professional sewing machines, so another really good business, especially for the women. There are some men, and they get trained in using the modern machine and making clothes. Most of them are making their own indigenous clothes, and they have a market, a wonderful market where they can sell those. So it's all kinds of, we've grown. So now we even have tilapia, so we sell tilapia. We have pigs to sell. I'm not sure they sell the meat or sell the pigs or whatever, so there's a group that have that. We haven't gotten into, yes we do, we have strawberries and jellies. So anyway, it's marvelous. They have all these, and they get trained to do it well.
And the fish are right here?
No, they're up in Cunene.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So it's where the youth are. We go where they are, and so they get their training.